Welcome back to another edition of I'm a Landlord. So we're going to continue on our maintenance series, and today we're going to go ahead and drop the M word. We're talking about mold. It is not to be played with. It's very serious. Could even have some health ramifications with it if you're not careful. What I will say is if you smell moisture in the house, just go ahead and get the mold test. You don't always see mold. It can be behind the walls and the cracks and crevices, and it doesn't take long to grow. So you can do an inspection, move an inspection, all that with the tenant, and the very next day, as soon as they move in, mold can start forming. So you just have to be ready to jump into action. Now, there are 1,000,005 different forms of mold, 1,000,005 different reasons. I am not a professional in that regard, so I'm not going to go into that and all the things that need to be done with remediation. However, what I will say is when it's mainly in basements where when you're dealing with mold. So when a basement floods, flooding doesn't always mean water everywhere. So like I mentioned, it can be behind the wall. So if you're flooding behind the walls, that means the insulation is soaking that up. All the heat and everything in the house is still going on, which is causing the mold. And it may just take a little longer for it to be visible and get through the drywall. Okay, so again, that's why if you smell it, just go ahead and get it tested, because you might need to get air scrub, might be in your duct system, all of that. So just go ahead, get it inspected, and get it treated. Now, it could be something minor. We were talking about HVAC systems last week, I believe. So if your condensation line comes out and it's leaking a little bit, it could get on the wall. That could cause mold. And that could be something that could be bleached and wiped down. But again, you want a professional to tell you that. If a tenant calls you and says the hot water heater goes out or there's a leak and you don't act on it as a landlord and then that causes mold, that's even more serious. Hop on it ASAP. Now, if a tenant calls later down the line and say, oh, this leak has been going on for a month and you're just finding out and mold is a result of it not being taken care of, you still have to jump into action. It's still your responsibility, but then on the back end, you can deal with the tenant in regards to negligence, in regards to the maintenance, based on what you have in your lease. Okay, so I'll even give you an example with mold. We had a amazing tenant, did a thorough walkthrough, and this tenant smelled dampness. Well, we didn't smell the dampness. The property had sat for an extended period of time vacant before we were bought on. So we're thinking the basement just kind of smells like a basement. Of course, as soon as that tenant moves in, we see mold. So you got to jump right into action. This particular owner is amazing. So they installed a sump pump. That was the permanent solution. And we'll talk about sump pumps next week. But that's how quick mold happens. If it's a heavy rainy season, in addition to it being very humid downstairs, forget about it. Especially in older homes. So those are all the things that you really need to take into consideration. If you're going to put a dehumidifier down there, if you're not looking for a permanent solution and you're just going to put a dehumidifier, make sure that the dehumidifier is functioning for the size of the room. Don't think you're going to get this little baby one with a pull-out pan and it'll work for a whole entire floor. No, you may need multiple in different areas to be able to pull that moisture out, okay? And if it's constantly running, you probably want the dehumidifier that has a drain hose or the attachment for a drain hose so that it can go right into the shower, sink, what have you, so you don't have to constantly pull the pan, all right? Mold is very, 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 very serious and unpredictable. So check, double check, triple check. Smell moisture, go ahead and get the mold inspection done. Don't mess around. Don't be a hero. You see mold, think you can just clean it up. Figure out what the source is. Where is the moisture coming from? If you need to get a dehumidifier, make sure it's functional for the room size that you're putting the dehumidifier or dehumidifiers, plural, in. Okay? So I'm going to see you next week. Key Runner Metro Property Management, where we build wealth through real estate. We're here to help. See you next week. Bye.